Still making you the speaker. I don't know why. All right.
Oh,
Well, hello. I want to welcome everyone to our parent support evening. Our parent support evening is, we try to do these evenings once a month to support parents of teens and young adults. And we're glad that you are joining us. This is also being streamed live to Facebook. And this evening, I'm really excited to welcome our speaker. Our speaker tonight is Maricruz Flores, and she'll be talking to us about self-care. This month is Suicide Awareness Month, and we've been doing a lot of things to support people in knowing the signs of suicide and how to respond if someone is suicidal. Tonight, we want to talk about making sure that everybody takes care of themselves. I know that many of us, especially those who are parents, those involved in ministry at our parishes, we like to say, well, it's not all about us, it's about serving. Suffering is redemptive. But at the same time, we really do need to take care of ourselves. So Maricruz will be talking to us a little bit about that. Maricruz is the director of youth ministry for the Diocese of San Diego. And she also, I understand, makes a mean pea soup. So if you want to talk pea soup at the end, you can talk about that too. But we're going to be, she'll be giving a presentation, and then I'll be going off and coming back at the end. When I do come back at the end, I'm going to take questions. So if you have questions, please type them in the chat on Facebook, and we will ask those questions at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Maricruz Flores. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Deacon Kevin. It's great to be here tonight with all of you tonight. Like you were saying, this topic about self-care, this goes beyond a clay face mask and a pedicure. This is about us paying attention to our bodies, paying attention to our well-being, and recognizing the signs of the need for self-care in our children and our young adults. It's one of those things that we see in social media nowadays, and it goes beyond like I said, the superficial. This is really taking care of ourselves, mind, soul, and spirit. And like Deacon Kevin said, I am the director to the Office for Youth Ministry in San Diego. I've been there for over a year, but before that, I was for 4 years a youth minister and a confirmation coordinator. So I got to work directly with youth in high school, as well as our young adults in our parish. So I got to see the students, stressing over homework, FAFSA, college applications. On top of that, trying to get their confirmation, homework done or their projects turned in on time, their community service. And so this went along with them well until college, their college courses, their homework, later on the older ones, their thesis, whatever it may be. And so they carried this workload with them. And most of us as adults, we take that with us as well in our work time, in our workspace, where we work 8 hours, and sometimes the most we take is about like half an hour for lunch, and that's it. We continue to work, and then we go home. We have meals ready for our children. We have to try to keep the house clean, and so it can be overwhelming. So how can we take care of ourselves and learn the science of how to take care of our children as well? It's like they tell us in an airplane, you have to put your oxygen mask first before you're able to put that onto other people. What I would like to share with you all is a couple of slides here from our presentation. If I'm able to please share my slides, Deacon Kevin, just so I could give you a few tidbits on, the necessity of learning the science of self-care for our students. Now, the first one I just want to quickly share, this one is about, where does it say in the Bible that we have to take care of ourselves? It's in Corinthians. Do you not know that you are a temple of God and the Spirit of God dwells in you? When we're able to take care of ourselves and take care of our spirit, our well-being, our mind, that flows out of us. That positivity radiates out of us. And when we're in a bad mood or when we're running on air, we know that it really does affect our family life. It affects the relationships we have with our friends and with our kids. So what can we do in these cases? What are some of the signs we can recognize? Now, in this next slide, there's a lot of things that we can do, to kind of slowly recognize the signs. This doesn't mean we have to be therapists. This doesn't mean that we have to be counselors or psychiatrists, excuse me. What this means is that, these are simple signs that we can kind of just check in our day and, see how we're doing, how our children are doing. So in these ones, sorry, let me just find my slide. So in these ones, these slides, these are from the Depression Project. These are two Australian brothers who came together to form this organization, this nonprofit. The Baker brothers, one was clinically depressed and one of them was a counselor. And so the brother who was a counselor tried to do everything in his power to help out his brother, walk him through his depression, through offering him support and getting him the help he needed. Recognizing that not everybody is blessed to have a counselor, psychiatrist, therapist in their family, they decided to form a nonprofit where they could, give out these tips and these signs that people can use to verify if someone in their household or even ourselves are suffering. A few things they've included, for example, is in, signs to know if you need a mental health day, you need a break, you need to take care of yourself, have a self-care day. Sometimes it could be overreacting to minor issues. You're running late, you're irritable, you're tired all the time, you cry more than usual. And this isn't, you watch a really sad movie or something emotional on TV and you start crying. This is, your coffee didn't turn out right, and so you get very emotional. That's a sign of exhaustion. Focusing is a struggle. People are talking to you and you zone out more than usual. You've been getting sick a lot. It's more than allergies. It's our bodies just telling us like you're running on air, you're on empty. At the end of the weekend, you don't feel well rested. You're exhausted, you can't sleep. Your anxiety is heightened. Sometimes you just feel down in the dumps. You may feel sluggish or groggy. You feel disconnected from everything and everyone. Your tolerance for other people around you may be low. Every morning you have to struggle to get up, to get to work, to get to school. There's really nothing you can enjoy during the day. You lose that joy in life. You can't remember the last time you took time off. There's changes in eating patterns. For example, in our kids, we know what our kids like. Sometimes they're picky. Sometimes, they eat the same thing every day. So we notice those changes in their appetite when something's going wrong. When they either don't want to eat or they're overeating, or they went from being, I'll eat anything to being really picky, little things like that. It's how we know, what the people that we're close to are going through. If we notice that they're stressed, if we see that they're overwhelmed, we point that out to them. It's something that we want to make sure that we understand, because the last thing we want is for our loved ones to start going through abuse, either of substances, of alcohol, pain medication. This can also be over the counter. We don't want them to also be sluggish and to find themselves in front of the TV for hours and hours on end. We know when especially during this pandemic, it can be very hard, especially being at home most of the time, to fall into those bad habits of, well, you know what, I'll just watch some Netflix. I need to get that out of my own head. And so we're there for hours on end without realizing that maybe we could do something that was healthier than, staring at a screen even longer than we have to. It could be hard to do in these times, but it's something that we must also recognize, to have healthy habits. One of the most basic things we can do, and to start with, is to make sure that we're hydrated. I know some of you are going, water, why? It's like, well, when we're well hydrated, it keeps us energized, it keeps us moving. Sometimes, I would recognize in my students, especially on retreats, when they would just be, can you just give me ibuprofen or Tylenol? My head hurts, my body hurts on retreat. And I would ask them, well, before I give you anything, have you been drinking water today? Are you hydrated? Let's try water first. And as soon as I would give them water, they would, take it slow. They would feel much better. And it would just simply be because they needed to drink water to stay hydrated. And like I said, most of our students don't recognize because they're on the go or they just don't need that water. And that sometimes includes ourselves as parents. How much water do we drink, during the day? What do we need to stay hydrated? I know a lot of us in the mornings, we have our cup of coffee, and then during lunch, we'll have a soda. And then for dinner, for parents, you may have a glass of wine, you may have juice, and then that's it. So, how much water a day are we drinking a day? Are we taking care of ourselves? No, like I said, it's something very simple. What can we do? So, for example, I carry my tumbler around. I try to make sure that, I have my filter ready to go and I'm constantly drinking that water. But like I said, it's one of those basic things that we have to realize that, either we're forming our good habits or our bad habits. Now, also along with water, it's, what we're consuming day by day. Now, by no means is this, a diet tip or a nutritious tip, which it could be in some matter. But food is essential to how we're living our lives. The food is our fuel that keeps us going. But we have to ask ourselves, what are we consuming and when are we consuming it? Did I have breakfast today? When am I going to have lunch? What's for dinner? What are we putting in our bodies and at what time? I remember in college, of course, much younger, I would try to have a granola for breakfast, maybe a Gatorade, lunch, if I didn't have finals or wasn't, running from class to class, I would try to have a sandwich. And unfortunately, because of work, I wouldn't have dinner till very late at night, which would lead me to heartburn, or I couldn't stay, I couldn't go to sleep because I was either full or I had something sugary. So it's not only what we eat, but when we eat it, whether it's a good meal, something in moderation, because like I said, most, doctors will tell you that you can have almost anything in moderation and at your hours, which is something we have to reflect on our day and realize, okay, what am I eating? When am I eating it? And is this good for me? Most doctors will tell you that, a little dessert after, dinner won't hurt you. But of course, if you eat half the pie, then we have a problem there, of course. So let's take consideration to what we're putting in our bodies as well. And we know what affects us. If that cup of coffee in the morning is giving you more anxiety than you need, just skip it and have water in the morning. A glass of orange juice. Like I said, nobody knows our bodies better than us. And all it takes is for us to pay attention. Now for this next slide. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, no, we're going to be talking about exercise, what we're doing with our bodies. And I don't mean like full on going to the gym, starting CrossFit, going on marathons. I'm talking to just about, a walk in the afternoon or in the morning before work, walking the dogs, or like, the recommendations have been is to walking as a family together. Now, exercise, especially, in our young ones, our young teens, our young adults, it helps them kind of take out that tension, release that stress that they have. And it's the same thing with us also as parents and even grandparents. We're reducing all these health factors, or excuse me, all these negative medical issues that may come along the way, as you see listed here. Depression is one of them. Anxiety is one of them on this list. This is something that just by walking, going out, getting our blood flowing can really help when we're dealing with issues like depression and anxiety. A lot of us who have suffered through anxiety, we know that there could be panic attacks that come along to this. And that's usually because when we have anxiety, we stay still. We don't move around. A lot of doctors recommend that if, you do have anxiety, the best thing we can do for ourselves is get our bodies moving, going for a walk, doing cardio, doing weights, anything that gets our blood flowing and also distract us from, what is causing our anxiety. But like I said, this is by no means me telling you everybody go work out, 2 hours a day. This is baby steps. This is basic, going for a walk, starting for a light cardio, starting with small weights, nothing too much. Because like I said, this isn't something that's gonna be, fixed overnight. This is something that has to come from forming good habits over time. Now, I know I said, with exercise, we start with small steps, and that's usually my recommendation for anything that I'm showing you here. It's small baby steps. We're not going to change overnight. We're not going to see drastic changes at the end of the week. This is something, like I said, it's going to take a while to do, because self-care, it's worth it. And anything that's worth, having or coming by is going to take work. Now, of course, we can't forget the big aspect of self-care, and that's surrounding ourselves with good people, surrounding ourselves with loved ones who, when they see us struggling, they're able to accompany us and to be there with us side by side. I know during this pandemic, it's been very hard to come together with family members, with friends. And it's just one of those things that, because of this pandemic, we've come to cherish more, being with people, being socially interactive. If, for example, you're part of that risk population right now during this pandemic, you can't see people as much. I was having a conversation earlier with another director about how during this pandemic, we see our extroverts are suffering a lot. Those who are introverted, I mean, they're already homebodies. They're okay to being at home, not that much social interaction, very few friends. But those of you who are parents, who have students who do sports, who have a lot of extracurriculars, who do community service, who are out and about, we see them suffering. We see our teens really lacking that, having that need to fulfill the lack of social interaction. Now, what are some things that we can do to help those who are extroverted, help those who, because of the risk factor, can't be out and, be in communication face to face in person with other people? Now, in my line of work right now in ministry, we're trying to get a list together of things we can do with our teens, our young people, and even those adults who were extrovert. I always tell my students to, figure out, the addresses of their friends, of maybe a relative that lives far away or another state, or, in a different country, and start writing letters. It's one of those things where I think the younger generation has forgotten the impact of getting a letter in the mail, a handwritten letter from a loved one. Hey, how are you? Of course, it's not the same thing as a text that you get within seconds, but a letter is so personal. And for someone to write your name out, to say, hey, how are you? To personalize the letter, put stickers, back in the day, if there was a love letter, it would be, sprayed with perfume, whatever it may be. And that's something that we can rekindle with our young people today. If maybe letters aren't their thing, they don't want to write too much, postcards are very cheap on Amazon. Kids can make their own with cardstock, just have the right measurements that the post office will mail out. And if you didn't know, stamps for postcards are actually cheaper than the regular letter stamps. So you can always, there's that side to that. But just postcards, you can send handwritten prayers to loved ones. You can start being pen pals with people from other parishes or other cities that you may know, that you came across on retreats or whatever it may be. Phone calls. We know that our youth right now, they prefer a message, a text message, a direct message over a phone call. Someone calls them on the phone, they will let it ring until it goes to voicemail. Of course, unless it's mom or dad. But it's one of those things where, it would be a good habit for our students to talk to one another, to hear their voice. Because like I said, right now our extroverts are really craving that intimacy, that personal touch when we communicate with other human beings. And like I said, right now it's very hard for us to be in person together. So there's nothing like, receiving that phone call and hearing that other person's voice. And of course, we have those who are really socially awkward. Texting is fine, of course. It's one of those things where we also don't want to discourage communication if they really feel out of their comfort zone with the first few suggestions I just gave. Checking up on people. Hey, a quick text. Hey, how are you? How are you doing? I'm praying for you. Something as simple as that can really make a difference. When we're dealing with people with depression or anxiety, and we don't know how to handle it, we don't know how to really help them, the most simple thing we can do is, hey, I've been thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. I'm praying for you. It's open-ended. The ball is in their court. If they want to respond, there's not that pressure of a, hey, how are you? But it's more like, hey, I've been thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. I'm praying for you. Of course, you can also set up virtual game nights. If some of you have heard, there's an app called Kahoot, or you can make up your own game, share the code with family members or friends, so everybody's on the same loop. And if you are at home with your family, just designate a night where it's game night, whether it be Sunday after you all watch Mass together, or on a Friday night. Get out the old board games, Monopoly, Clue. For my Hispanic families, Loteria. Something that really, gets us together, brings us together like a family that we are. And really, start that tradition of, once a week we get together and we're all doing something fun, and we're taking turns picking games, or you have a fun interactive game with your family from that are not around. Also, another big one that I added right now in these times is community service. We see a lot of need in our community, especially with the recent fires, and we hear about people needing materials, needing items. And it's something where, because of all the technology we have right now, and because we're living in a pandemic, it can be easier to organize, for example, a sock drive. You just have people mail someone or a parish, socks. Someone gets them together and delivers them to the nearest place that needs them. For example, Catholic Charities have been really good at collecting donations like that. Toiletries for homeless brothers and sisters, that can also be easily fundraised for and collected online through Amazon wish lists, or it could be sent directly to the Catholic Charities near you. Just so we make sure that, not only are we teaching our kids to take care of our brothers and sisters in need, but also to make sure that we're still doing what we're supposed to do as good Catholics in our lives. Now, I know I've talked a lot about, the basics, making sure that we're taking care of our well-being with drinking water, our food, when we eat, what we eat, going out for walks, exercising. But what about our prayer life? How are we doing in that aspect? And especially in a time of pandemic with everything going on in our world, it can be very hard to find that moment of peace, even if it's just for 5-10 minutes. But prayer is also a big part of self-care. What does your prayer space look like? Do you have a prayer space? Do you have that room, or maybe just that corner in your house where you're like dedicating to you and God time? I know that sounds weird, but the thing is that, and this is something I tell my teens and my young adults, prayer time is a time we dedicate to talking to God. This is a time we tell God about our day, our life, our hopes. It's even the time we take to complain to God. God, I had a really stressful day. I don't know why this person is acting this way. I'm going to pray for this person. Even if it's complaints, it's still a prayer. It's still you talking to God. It's still you forming that relationship with him. So when we talk to God, it's like we're talking to a close friend. It's like we're talking to a loved one. It's like we're talking to our best friend. And that's the type of relationship that we should keep on fostering with God. Even when things get tough, we don't stop and, go on with our day without telling God. It's when the going gets tough that we continue to pray to God. Even when sometimes things may seem a little hopeless, we sit there and we pray with God. Now, another thing we have to do is to make sure that, we start that tradition of praying with our families, praying with our friends, and foster that in our children, because we don't want our teens to grow up and being afraid of, asking someone to pray with them or pray for them. I remember when I was in high school, the youth minister would tell our parents, like, hey, if you have multiple children at home, have them pray for each other, pray with one another. And it took away that stigma of like, oh, it's weird that we're praying for one another. When we teach our teens and our young people to pray for one another, they continue on that tradition when they go off to college, when they grow up, they get jobs. And there's not that shyness of, praying for one another. So making sure who we are praying with, dedicating time to praying. So for example, if we're on a rush, we know we have a hectic week. We know our kids have a hectic week. Even though we're not together, let's all say, hey, wherever we're at 2:30 p.m., let's just quickly say in our Father, no matter where we are at. I know this I take from my mom. My mom has family all over the country, and they started a prayer chain through text messaging. So they all know that no matter where they are at 8 o'clock at night, they all take the time to pray a rosary together, even though they may not physically be together or may not be on a call, but they know that 8 o'clock they sit wherever they're at and pray a rosary. Host Bible studies on Zoom. I know a lot of youth groups have been doing that. Whenever we have, for example, people saying, hey, can you pray for so-and-so? Can you pray for me? I know for a lot of us at the end of the day, we may be like, oh, I forgot what that person asked me to pray for. This picture here, the prayer wall, I got this really cool idea from Pinterest, of course. And so most of us youth ministers, we've taken upon to have a prayer wall in our offices. And so when someone says, hey, I'm having a tough time, we just jot that prayer down and we post it on our prayer wall. So at the end of the day, or when we have a break, we're able to sit down, stare at these Post-its and pray for the people that have come to us, or things that we see on the news, people we see in our community, we post it up there. Of course, there's a lot of people who do this with a small little black book. I know we usually don't use addresses in little black books anymore, but people have taken the time to get little journals, little memo pads, and whenever they encounter something like that or someone, they jot down the prayer. And at the end of the night or in their morning, they take out their little memo book pad or their journal and they pray over that book with their intentions inside. Now, prayer time for us busy people. I know several priests on Instagram who are very much about working out, exercising, doing marathons. And they talk about how they're praying the rosary or they're remembering all their intentions and they're praying along as they're working out. I know of moms who, while they're doing chores, that's the time they turn on the radio or whatever it may be, and they listen to the rosary from being streamed from Vatican, wherever it may be. And so while they're doing their work, they're praying along as well. Praying while driving, praying over our meals, of course, and most importantly is praying with our family, our coworkers, and friends. It's very important for us to recognize that prayer is also a big part of self-care, because this is the essential part that keeps us connected to God, that keeps us connected on the right path. And to make sure that, we're praying for those in our community, our brothers and sisters in need, and for those in our parishes. Now, this one is also a very important one. And most of us, especially during this pandemic and with all our stresses, it's something that, we lack of, and that's sleep. So with sleep, it's one of those things that, like I said, during a pandemic, nothing is going to be normal. Everything's going to be out of whack. And so, trying to make sure that we keep a good habit of our sleeping patterns. We know that when we don't sleep our full 8 hours or, the time that we need to rest, we're cranky the next morning. Our mood is, as imbalanced. And so we also notice this with students who have anxiety and depression, as well as adults, where sleep ties in heavily to how our anxiety is going to do the next day or throughout the week. So it's good to stick to a sleeping schedule. If you have a smartphone, they'll provide you with, a bedtime and, an alarm for your morning. We have to pay attention to what we eat and drink. Like I said earlier, it's good to stay hydrated, to know how much water we're intaking besides, just coffee and just juice or soda. It's also very important to what we eat. I know I mentioned that, in college, if I had cereal for dinner, I knew I was going to be up because of the sugar in the cereal. And that would keep me up, and I would still have to wake up early the next day. And I knew I was not going to have a good day. So it's paying attention to what we eat, what we drink, and what time we do it. We all know that if we drink a cup of coffee at 2 p.m., 3 p.m., we're not going to go to bed early just because we know that caffeine is going to keep us up. So it's good to make sure to know what drinks, what food affects us, and, to really pay attention to when we eat that or when we consume that so it doesn't affect our sleeping patterns. The next one that they recommend, and before I forget, most of these tips I did find at the Mayo Clinic. And after the presentation, I will post the resources and the link to the slides in the chat. So these are all coming from the Mayo Clinic. So going on. So creating a restful environment. If you know the TV is going to keep you up at night, turn it off or take it out of the room. I know a lot of people, it depends. Some people can sleep with the lights on, some people cannot, some people can't sleep with noise, some people can. So figure out what's your right sleeping environment and make sure you keep it that way in order to provide a better night's sleep. I know a lot of us can find really hard and really tempted to take a nap, but sometimes if we know that that's going to prevent us from going to bed early, to just go ahead and skip that nap just because we know it's going to keep us up. Going back to that physical activity, to incorporate into our lifestyle, because we know the more exercise we do, the more we're able to consume that energy. It de-stresses us, and that will be conducive to a better night's sleep as well. And managing our worries. This is one of those things with a lot of people with anxiety. We're up at night thinking about a million little things that we probably did years ago that have, nothing to do with our daily lives today, and yet they still keep us up. One of the things that I've heard that this helps with managing our worry, especially when we have anxiety late at night and we're thinking about all the things that could go wrong or have gone wrong, is to have a journal. And as soon as we have those anxiety thoughts, those negative thoughts, write them down in a journal and realize this is not my reality. God is with me. I have a loving family. I have good friends. This is just, anxiety. And once we come to realize that, okay, it's fine, tomorrow's going to be a great day, and you write it down and it's on paper, you're able to better manage it. You're able to kind of release it, so to speak. So that's one way you can manage your worries. And of course, talking to someone, if you know that, you have these creeping thoughts, just to reach out to a friend, a loved one, say, hey, you know what, I've been worried about this. I've been worried about that. I'm worried about this project. I'm worried about my homework. Because a lot of our kids, sometimes we know that, they're up at night, till 2, 3 in the morning, talking with friends or on social media. And, it's most of the times that they just don't want to go to sleep or they're restless. And so having that conversation with their kids as well, before they go to bed. I mean, I know most teenagers and young adults are too old to be tucked in, but just having a conversation before they go to bed and like, hey, how's school going? Or I heard it's been really tough. If you ever need anything, just let me know. Don't worry, I'm here for you. Just letting them know that you're here for them, that can be a great weight lifted off their shoulders because they feel that they have that support. They know they have that support. So that's a way we can help our teens. And now finally, we're getting to the last slide here. And it's a very important one. And this is most for us as adults, because I know as adults, we're very good at keeping up with doctor's appointments. We're very good at keeping up with dentist appointments, but for our kids, not for ourselves sometimes. So in this last slide, we have to take in consideration us. How are we doing? When was the last time we saw our doctor? We kept up with our medical appointments, our therapy appointments. It's very essential for us to make sure that not only are we spiritually doing well, that we're doing exercise, that we're eating well, but we're also taking care of ourselves. And make sure that, if we do have medication, we're taking it on time and how we're supposed to. And we're constantly talking to our doctors about any ailments or pains. There's a lot of studies going around how, doctors are saying that, they can pretty much tell when their patients aren't telling the truth. And for whatever reason, it may be shame or they don't know how to vocalize it. But doctors are telling patients, hey, just be real with us. They've seen everything, to really talk to them. Even if, it's something, very simple or they're afraid of getting bad news. When you have that open communication with your doctors, it really helps them to figure out, what's going on. Taking breaks during the day, like I was saying earlier, for the teens, our teens that we know are very extroverted, they're out and about, they rarely take breaks. And sometimes as adults, we do the same thing. And, we may not have sports or extracurriculars or whatever it may be, but, like I said, we have a work life, we have a social life, we have a family life. And on top of that, we have to take care of our households. And so it can be very difficult to, take a step back and really take a break. Those dishes will eventually be done. It's okay. Or you can delegate them to your kids. But it's very good for us as adults to also take a break. Um, a lot of us parents, when we go all day long without a break, at the end of the day, we're irritable, we're upset, we're in a bad mood. And that affects our family lives, because like I said in the very beginning, the way we feel, the rest of our family and our loved ones are going to get that same feeling from us. So if I'm having a bad day, my kids are going to notice that I'm having a bad day. And sometimes, unfortunately, I may act out on it because, like I said, I'm irritable. So it's very important for us to take a moment when we're overwhelmed. It's okay, the world will still spin, and take a deep breath. Because a lot of us sometimes when we're overwhelmed, we're stressed and we're trying to get things done. We just want to rush through and get those things done. But in reality, if we want them to be done well and we want to be healthy and we want to take care of those around us, it's usually when we need a break, when we're most overwhelmed, whether it just be a 10-minute walk around the building at work, or it's just getting up and doing stretches, deep breathing, just so we can go ahead and release that tension. And of course, I know during this pandemic, it's very hard to do so, but even just starting to plan a vacation or a staycation or a week at home where all we do is, crafts, catch up on our hobbies, read a good book, and maybe, indulge in a little Netflix to catch up with your shows. But just because we know that taking a vacation, taking a break is really good for us to keep our minds away from, our daily lives, our daily work, and to really regroup us in what the purpose of our life is. What are our priorities? Because a lot of us, through our days, through work or whatever it might be, our priorities may shift. Sometimes we prioritize work over our children. Sometimes we prioritize our children over ourselves. And so there has to be a way for us to balance that all out, to figure out, how can we take care of our children, but taking care of ourselves first so they can get the best of us. Now, like I said, these are just tips that I've come across in youth ministry, talking with other parents, and of course the Mayo Clinic, if you research online. And like I said, it's something that these are tips that I hope can help us realize what we can do to better ourselves, to really take care of ourselves. Like I said, beyond a face mask and a pedicure, but really help ourselves spiritually, mind, soul, and body. So I hope, that what I showed you today is able to help you with your life, your children. I don't know if there are any questions, Deacon Kevin, at this time. But like I said, this is my presentation for the day. Thank you for the evening.
Well, thank you so much for all of that. I mean, what I love about it is it's just so practical. It's like the stuff your mom always told you, and you're summarizing it in like 20, 25 minutes. But I think it's really important. I do think one of the things that really resonated with me was you talking about that, connecting with people to play games once a week and trying to make that a routine. That my dad really loves to play poker, and he's been kind of isolated mostly at home. A little bit of golf here and there when he can get out, but he's been isolated at home. So he reached out to us and said, "Hey, is there any way we could play poker online?" So then me and my brother-in-law had to figure out how to set up the online poker and all the stuff and how to taught my dad how to use Zoom. And so now me and my two brothers and my brother-in-law and my dad, we play poker every week. And it's starting to get really expensive because my dad's actually really good at poker, and so he keeps beating us all. At some point, I'm gonna have to say, "No more money, Dad." But anyway, but it's been a really good. I mean, we're more connected. I mean, usually we'd see each other 3 times a year, and now we see each other every week. So like, there is a lot. It's a virtual connection. It's not as intimate. When we get together for Christmas every other year, we spend 4, 5, 6 days together. We're just all in the same house, hanging out together. But it's been a really good experience for us and helped us to keep healthy. And when this pandemic first started, my wife was like, "We need to buy bikes," and I'm like, "Why do we need to buy bikes?" And then I'm like, so happy that we bought bikes because my 2 teenage daughters and my wife and I have been doing bike rides once in a while. We don't do as often as we should, but going on bike rides, and then everybody else is trying to buy bikes, and you can't get bikes anymore, right? Like there's a run on bikes, right? Because everyone's at home. So that's been great. But I do think, just the simple thing about looking at prayer as kind of, as one of those important relationships in your life, right? We say you need to have a relationship with Jesus, and if we're not praying, we're not in relationship with him. And I think it's really important that we have that relationship. And then also just taking that quiet time, with God. I mean, that's just really good for us. Even though I think a lot of us, people who are introverted, are probably getting, even, way too much quiet time. I know my daughter, my two daughters must have read, 20 books, over the summer. And so I finally had to tell my daughter, you need to go outside and do something. Because my one daughter was doing dancing and some online drama classes and stuff like that. My other daughter was not leaving her room. She was reading all day. So I finally just said, mental health check, you need to do something. So I gave her golf lessons. So she's been learning golf and really enjoying that. But I think it's really good. It's really good. Um, um, Water. Jen Campbell, who works in our office, just sent me a little message that that the drinking water thing is a really good reminder, and she said that that's what they do at camp when they have summer camp. Whenever a kid says they don't feel good, they make them drink water first. Like, have you drink water here? Have a bunch of water, and usually 90% of the time that solves their problem. Whatever it is. So I think that drinking water and hydrating is also a really good tip. I think I need to hire you as my life coach to hold me accountable to all those things. Because I also think one of the things you said is that we need to take care of ourselves. I think a lot of us are really concerned about our children, like making sure that they're healthy, and I think we've done a pretty good job of making sure my kids, eat and connect with their friends and have activities. We found activities to do when all of their sports got canceled and all of that. But I'm not sure that my wife and I have really taken care of ourselves, very well. I think that's kind of natural. You're not so worried about yourself, but it's just like on the airplane, right, where you're supposed to put the mask on first before you help your kids. And then what are we modeling, right? I think that's true too. I mean, I tell people that about faith formation all the time. Like, you can teach all you want, but if you're not really living out the faith in your life, you're not really doing anything. You're not really teaching the faith to them because you're not acting it out themselves. So if my wife and I aren't taking care of ourselves, the kids are, whatever. You told me to eat breakfast, but you never eat breakfast, Dad. My daughter called me out on that the other day. And I'm like, well, it's the most important meal. She's like, I thought it's the most important meal of the day. And I said, okay, I'll eat breakfast with you. So we've been trying to eat breakfast together. But I don't know. But thank you for all those insights. I think it's just they're just really good reminders. And I think for parents, and I think people, especially parents, other parents who are in ministry, my friends who are in the diaconate and all that. I mean, I think those reminders are really important for us. That we need to take care of ourselves, and that's part of it. So how are you doing with taking care of yourself during the pandemic?
It's been one of those things where when this all first started, I was kind of like in shock, like, is this really happening? Like, what's going on? Trying to find toilet paper. And
Mhm.
so it was just one of those things where I think about a month and a half in, I was like, okay, we're going in for the long haul. Like, I have my youth ministers who depend on me to be there for them, my family, as well. My parents are a little bit older, so just make sure that they were okay. And it was one of those things where I was getting constant headaches, and I was like, this is not normal. Like, I never get headaches. What's going on? I was feeling down on myself. Until finally I was reading up on, mental health, because we had just had an in-service about it. And I realized it really is just the basics of, am I having breakfast in the morning? It's the most important meal. Am I drinking enough water? And so I bought a jug of water, because we have a filtration system down in our office. And so I was constantly monitoring my water intake and making sure that, no more fast food runs, packing my own lunch. And that would make me get up a little bit earlier, prep at night better. And so just building that routine and the good habits to really get me in the spirit of, okay, I'm going to take care of myself, because if I am able to take care of myself, my people, my family, my friends, they're going to be okay, because I'm going to be, trying to do the best for them, because I feel my best right now.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. It is focusing and having a routine on the little things, and then prioritizing, right? Prioritizing taking care of yourself,
Hmm.
and you kind of sticking to that. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's so practical, but it makes so much sense. And to hear you say all of that in a row, then and I'm like, exact. I got to do that more. Okay, I got to. Where do I
Yeah,
start? I'm ready. Like let's go. Right? None of that stuff is hard, right? And all of that stuff is obvious and stuff we know already, right? So
definitely. Yeah.
I just want to think. So anyway, well, I'm going to bring on. Thank you for your presentation this evening. I hope that was helpful to those of you who are watching online or who watch this later. And I know it was a great reminder of a lot of things for me, and I hope it was helpful for you. And it wouldn't be a Catholic event without a few announcements. So I'm going to invite Jen Campbell to come on and give us our announcements, and then we'll close in prayer after that.
Okay. Did I share correctly? Yes, I did. Okay, so we really have one main announcement in the Diocese of Sacramento, and that is that this Saturday is our ministry days. We have a really great lineup of speakers, including Maricruz will be there. And our keynotes are Felix Polazzi, and he'll be doing our keynote in Spanish, and Dr. Edward Suri will be doing our keynote in English. We have workshops on just about any topic. And we're really focusing this year with our theme of Rejoice and Be Glad. And with that, we're also focusing on ministry with parents. We, in this unique experience of a lot of people doing things homeschooling and having to adjust how we do our formation, we are really empowering our parents to be that primary catechist. So all of these workshops are for a parent. Parents can attend them. They'd be easy for them to understand and to be able to then use with their children. The registration is at ministrydays.com, and you can register up till Friday to attend all these workshops. If you register after the fact, you will get an access. If you want to register after the fact, you can. You'll get access to all the workshops. They will be recorded. So there are going to be 44 workshops in English and Spanish. So if you're bilingual, you'd get all 40. You could listen to all 44. If not, then half and half approximately. But that'll all be available to you. And then I think I have one more slide. And then I just want to let you know tomorrow, because we love Maricruz in our diocese, and we've invited her to come speak to our Pastoral Juvenil Hispana committee. Has a session that will be on Facebook Live tomorrow night from 6:30 to 8, and she'll be talking about similar to what you talked about tonight, but gearing it towards young adults. And this is all before Suicide Awareness Month. Those are all the announcements that I have this week.
Well, Maricruz, I just want to thank you, Jen Campbell, first of all, for all you do and for those great announcements. And I hope all of you parents who are on tonight will sign up for Ministry Days. We took the risk. We're the only diocese in Northern California doing a Ministry Days in the fall anyway. And so we did it anyway, even though it'd have to be virtual. So we're really trying to get people to sign up for that. So if if it sounds interesting at all, or you'd like to get some formation or connect with others through our virtual platform, we'd really encourage you to sign up for Ministry Days. And you could get a refresher. Maricruz will be there giving a similar workshop at Ministry Days in English and Spanish. You can let your friends know about that as well. Thank you for joining us once again, and let's just close with a short prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, you came and promised us that you came that we might have life and live it to the full. You promised that your Holy Spirit would come and be with us always, to walk with us, to answer our questions, to comfort us in our time of need. Lord, this really is a time of need for so many people. We ask that you send your Spirit upon us, your Holy Spirit, and that you'll walk with us through all of our suffering and through the uncertainty of this time. We know that you have a plan for us and you have a plan for our church. We ask you to help us to understand that better and to obey and continue to love you. We also ask you to help us to remember that the ministry we do, this ministry of parenting and the other ministries we might be involved in, that these are your ministries, not ours, and that we are just stewards and your laborers in the vineyard. And we ask you just to be with us and to inspire us, to keep us hopeful and positive, and help us to see the light, not just at the end of the tunnel, but the light in the tunnel, the light right now in our lives, because you've been so gracious to us and you love us so much. We ask your blessing also upon our sister Maricruz for her ministry and all that she does for others in your name. And we pray in just a special way for those who are in ministry that don't feel supported and feel isolated and alone at this time. We pray that you'll be with those people in a special way and help them to continue doing your good work, to be with them always. We ask all this in your holy name. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right. Well, good night. Let's all get some good night's sleep tonight. Drink some water first. Okay.